I'm Susie Wallman from Backstage, and I'm here with Mary Elizabeth Winstead. Mary, how are you doing today?
I'm doing very well, thank you. How are you?
I'm doing well, thank you. We'll start with your latest project, The Hand That Rocks the Cradle, which is, of course, a remake of the 1992 classic.
Yes.
You watched the original in preparation?
I did not. I read the script when this script came to me, and I loved it immediately and kind of, right away went and Googled the original. I was very aware of it. I had very strong memories of the original when it came out. I don't think I ever saw it when it came out. I was a little bit young, I think. Um, but I can remember the trailer, I can remember the posters, like, even just seeing that, in the 90s was like, ooh, what is that? So it definitely brought something out of you, even just seeing the ads for it and things like that. So I had a very strong memory of it. But then when I looked up the synopsis, I was like, oh, this is quite different just in terms of the backstories of the characters and what gets the ball rolling in terms of the story. And so I thought, I don't really know that this is going to be helpful for me in terms of creating this character because her backstory is so different than the story in the original. So I decided to kind of stay away from it and just do my own thing.
Nice. Can you talk a little bit more about your process of creating your character?
Sure. I mean, I guess like when I read something and love it, I kind of know that's because there's a connection there. There's some sort of emotional connection to it for me. And sometimes I know what that is right away. And sometimes I go, okay, I love this, but why? Like, what is it about me that is so pulled to this? Um, and obviously this one, there's so many things you can kind of immediately connect to, especially, as a mother, the kind of anxieties of what this film brings up is like very easy to tap into. So I was immediately pulled in from that perspective, and just having it be so, it just felt like it was from such a female lens in a way, even though our screenwriter is actually a male, but he sort of was able to bring such empathy to these characters that's rarely seen. And so that empathy, I think, is tends to be where I start. Like I just fall in love with the character that I'm playing, and I figure out what it is about them that is wounded and what it is about them that I see that I love. And I kind of go towards that, I guess, and try and hold on to that throughout the kind of crafting of the work.
So you kind of start from like I don't know, trying to find the emotional veracity and then kind of building from there.
Totally. Yeah. I guess kind of grounding it in who they are and their core. And
Mhm.
that kind of helps me, start building those layers of covering up who they might be,
Right.
at their core.
Is that different for, obviously you've done, a lot of true horror and then I would guess this would be more of a psychological thriller.
Yeah.
Is there like a different process of kind of finding that core emotional truth for characters across different genres, or is it sort of the same process,
I,
no
I
matter?
think it's the same. It's always the same process for me. The only thing that makes it different, it's less about genre and more about the director's style. Sometimes you work with a director who um, from their previous work that they might have a more stylized approach, or they might like something a certain way, and so you might have to keep that in mind. Um, Other than that, it sort of doesn't matter the genre. It's always kind of starting from the same place of connection to the character and the story and kind of going along for the ride. And then the tone is what is kind of a collaboration with, everybody. If it's like a heightened tone or, more comedic or more satirical and all those things you kind of might have to find. But other than that, and that's, everything is kind of starting from the same place.
Mhm. Um, so you're talking about the director actor collaboration, kind of
Yeah.
collaboration with other actors. Obviously, you work with the wonderful Mike Monroe for this one.
Yes.
Can you talk about what that was like?
It was amazing just to kind of watch her work and to watch her process. I think because of this character, she kept a little bit more of a bubble around her because this character is obviously so sociopathic. So I think in order to kind of get into that, um, in between takes and things, she was kind of like in the zone. And then we'd have like moments where we were able to break out of that and just be like very fun and sisterly with each other and kind of have that connection. Because I do think the characters are so connected to each other, even though there is so much animosity, obviously, from at least one direction. There is this undeniable, somehow this something deeper, this connection with them. So it was lovely to kind of feel that with Micah, even though we were kind of keeping our own separate processes as well to kind of keep that for the characters, and just to be able to shoot mostly chronologically and kind of build that as we went. Um, was really, really fun. And to see what she brought to it, I was just blown away. Every scene, I was just like, oh my gosh, this is so chilling what she's doing. And then when we kind of reached the climactic moment of the film, I was like, just wow. I was just blown away by her talent and her kind of commitment to the film as a whole. Like she's a real collaborator as well. Michelle and Micah and I all met before we started shooting and kind of went over all the big scenes together. And we were all so much on the same page about what it needed to be. And I felt like she was so smart in terms of like a filmic perspective of like, what the scene is trying to say and how it fits into the film as a whole. And we had a really good time kind of like going, oh, if we change this line, we change that line, and we hint to this backstory here and there. I felt like we were so kind of in the collaboration together, which was really great.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Was there a scene that was particularly difficult to shoot, or maybe particularly?
Um, I think the most kind of daunting one was probably, and I don't want to give anything away, but there's a big scene at the end, where she and I kind of come together and everything comes to its head. Um, and it's very intense and very emotional and also becomes quite physical. And so I think for both of us, I wouldn't say that it was difficult to shoot because it was so much fun to shoot. But it was daunting in terms of it's the kind of thing where okay, this is on the schedule and we're working towards that, and it's looming over us that we're going to have to do this kind of monster of a scene. So that's always difficult when in the back of your mind that you've got something to do that's going to require a lot of you. And even though when those moments come, I always love it. It's the time leading up to it that is difficult. Like you feel nervous that you're just like not going to be on that day, or it's just not going to click, and usually when you're in the moment, it just kind of comes. So, but yeah, the moments leading up to it are hard.
Did you have to go to special training for the physical scenes? Like, did you work with a stunt choreographer or
We
fight?
did. We had a great stunt team. I mean, for this one, it was quite scrappy, so it didn't really require a lot of like advanced choreography or anything like that. But kind of on the day, we had an amazing stunt choreographer who came in and just was like, helped guide us in terms of how to make this look real, how to make it look hard, how to make it look scary. And so I love working with stunt teams. So that was so much fun to get to do that. And I really love it, especially when it can be scrappy and real like that. And we get to just kind of go for it. So no, I thought that was really, really fun.
Um, so kind of going a little bit broader, I guess. You mentioned that when you're choosing a role, you find, again, that moment of emotional connection. Does that apply to like, are there roles that you've turned down because you didn't have that? Can you kind of talk about your process of just, I guess, choosing which roles you take on?
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's definitely changed as I've gotten older. Um, it's much easier for me to say no based on not feeling that connection, even if there's great people involved and, on paper everything looks great. If it doesn't feel like something I'm pulled to do, um, then I'm not the right person for it. And I think earlier on in my career, I probably would have been like, well, this is a good director and it's a good writer. And even though I don't really understand it or I don't really get it, I should do it because what, who am I to turn something down that everybody else thinks is good? And now I'm just in much more of a place of like, even if it turns out to be the best movie ever, I'm like, wow, good for them. Like they knew what they were doing and they got it and they were all in it, but it just wasn't meant for me. And so that's kind of my process, I guess, is I just wait for the right thing to come along that feels like mine, and I read it and I go, oh yeah, that's me. That's meant for me. And sometimes it's just like it's a great script, but it's just not right for me. Yeah.
Is there a role or a project that you like think back that you're like, oh, that was like it just keeps resonating. You keep thinking about that part or that film, TV show.
Yeah. I mean, there's a few of them now, but one that really always sticks out is a film I did called Smashed, because that was something that was really pivotal for me in terms of kind of like cementing my process as an actor, and um, it just taught me a lot about myself and the way that I like to approach roles and the way that I like to work. And so that always kind of I go back to that when I'm approaching a role or approaching a character and trying to get into it. I kind of, I often think about that process and what that was like, and what an amazing experience it was. And that's something that I definitely carry with me all the time.
That one you're playing a recovering alcoholic, right?
Yes, yeah.
You did you practice like how to perform as though you're drunk or what was
Yeah, I mean, it's funny. We had the director James Ponsoldt and Aaron Paul, who was playing my husband, and I. We went on like kind of a bar crawl before we started shooting, just to kind of because the he and I in the film had a lot of scenes where we were meant to be drinking together, and so we wanted to kind of feel in real life what that dynamic was like for us, and try and remember that when we were doing the scenes. um so that was the only time we actually sort of imbibed for real, was before we started shooting that one night. But it was fun to see kind of like, okay, this is what I'm like in this state, and that's something that I can bring to this character and actually like think about it, during that time, and take note of the way that I behaved and things like that. So that was good little bit of practice. And then beyond that, I read a book called The Power of the Actor, which kind of helped. It had a chapter about acting, doing drunk scenes and scenes where you're high and things like that. And so the director and I kind of honed in on some of those tips. And there's some little things as well, like little tricks to trick the mind and the body that helped me a lot, like looking down at the floor and spinning. And so, I was just like spinning over and over again, and then I would stop and I would just, the room would be spinning like it is when you're drunk, like that. Absolutely, that happens. So some things like that just made it feel more real and kind of easier to tap into.
what was the name of that book again? Sorry.
The book was called The Power of the Actor.
The actor.
Yeah.
Are there any other books that you kind of turn to when you're trying to either, fulfill a certain role or just general scene study, anything like that?
That's the sort of the only time that I really got into a book like that. That was something that the director and I both did together. We were like, we're going to read this book together and sort of approach the film together through, a lens of a certain process, which was really fun to do. And I would be so, I would love to do something like that again. Um, but mostly now I kind of, if anything, I might read a book that is a narrative book that reminds me of the character or reminds me of the story or helps me kind of tap in from an emotional place. If there's something that I feel like is telling a similar story or is going on a similar emotional journey, then I might read that book at the same time that I'm making something. Because it's hard for me to like read or watch things while I'm working, unless it's really helping, facilitate the performance in some way.
Were there any that you were reading or watching or anything while getting ready for the Rocks the Cradle?
God, I don't remember. I don't think so. And to be honest, like at this point in my life, I don't really have much time to do that anymore. That, it's something I would have done in the past, and hopefully, in the future I'll get back to that. But I'm definitely in a phase now of a little bit more throw myself in and I'm in the moment, and then I go home and I'm just, with my son, and there's not really much more time for any more preparation than that. But I'm really thankful that I've kind of had all these years to build on up till now that I can kind of, lean back on when I don't have as much time to prepare as I used to.
Plus, I'm sure, as you said earlier, the very act of being a mother
Yes, yes, yeah, absolutely. That alone is helpful.
relevant to the
Yeah, irrelevant. Yeah, yeah.
And then I know we only have a couple minutes left, so I'll ask, is there any advice that you wish you had received when you were just starting out on your journey as an actor? And then also, what advice would you give those who are just starting out themselves?
I guess I wish I had been told, and to be fair, I might have been told this and didn't really listen. Um, but just in terms of from an acting point of view, don't try to get anything right. Don't try to be perfect. Don't try to like think about nailing it, when you're in an audition or on set. And I think in my early days, that's what I was really concerned about. And I always wanted to get it right. And I was always sort of practicing and practicing. And it's not to say you shouldn't be rehearsing and going over the scene and working on it and breaking it down. But I always sort of felt like there was a right and a wrong, I think, when I was younger. Like you've got to do it the right way. And if I got a note, I felt like I had done something wrong. Like I felt bad, like, oh no, I screwed it up. I didn't get it right. And there is no right. And kind of now I'm in a place where I feel so much more free, and I have no ego around being told I got the scene totally wrong. It's like you just try it, and you play and you bring yourself to it, and don't worry so much about whether or not you hit every moment correctly and all of that. That's really not what it's about. It's about playing, and it's about finding truthful moments and being really as free as you could possibly be. So I think, that's kind of, I wish I could go back and like start from that place. And I feel like, the first decade or so of my career would have felt very different for me. And I think, and I definitely see some younger actors who have that from the start. And I'm like, wow, I'm so impressed. I'm impressed by that when young actors just kind of show up and they're just like fully in their bodies, being free and not really caring so much about what other people think.
Yeah.
I think that's a really amazing thing.
Do you have any advice for how, I know it's kind of hard, but it's very individual, but how, again, early career actor could kind of get themselves in
Do
that
that.
mindset? It's like, just
That's tough. I know. I know it's one of those things that's like easier said than done. It's like telling people, yeah, don't be insecure. And it's like,
okay.
okay, not it's harder than just sort of saying it. So I think it's also like giving yourself grace. Like if you are insecure and if you do feel that way and you are struggling to like not know how to be free, like give yourself grace for that too. Just be like, just practice it. Just every time you get in a room, every time you do a tape or whatever it is, just keep practicing being free, even if you only find like a few moments where you feel that way. That's great. And you'll work your way towards it. So don't worry if you feel nervous and tense and all of that stuff. Like it's just practice trying to let go. And one day you'll be able to do it.
Wonderful. Well, I guess that is time. Thank you so much for taking the conversation.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Nice to talk to you.